early on I used to have all the information, and then you'd a buyer would inquire, and I'd send them all the information. And I was wondering why it didn't work, because surely I was being efficient. Surely I was giving more than other people were, which I was. But you're giving it all, and then, well, I wasn't selling, they were not coming in.
You are listening to the Property Developer Podcast, your home for tips, ideas and inspiration to help take your developing to the next level. Now here's your host, Justin Getty.
Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the show. It's great to have you with me. I trust your projects are progressing nicely. I have a wonderful show for you today as I speak with a top agent about selling property off the plan. Just before we get to that, here's a quick update on my projects. The big news is that my 20 townhouse project is finished. Hooray! And most of the properties have settled, which is nice. The settlements went reasonably smoothly, only one that we are having difficulty with, but that'll get sorted out in the next few days as they've been issued with a notice of rescission, which basically means settle up or the contract will be torn up and you'll lose your deposit. So I'm sure that will be enough to get things moving. So most of the buyers have moved in and are now getting settled into their new homes. And it feels a little weird waving goodbye to the project and not really having any reasons to visit the place anymore. It was a pretty busy time leading up to the settlement, with mountains of paperwork to sign and settlement sums to figure out. But we got there and the project is now over. I made a short wrap-up video to showcase the development, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So check it out if you want to see how it all looks. With my other project, we had our community consultation meeting a few weeks back, and that was an interesting experience. There were probably 35 to 40 people there from the area, including the local councillor, and all of them were pretty much against what we are proposing. We tried to educate the room around what is allowed under the local planning scheme and how our proposal is actually quite conservative next to each of the controls that are in place, like heights, setbacks, etc. Anyway, our application goes to a council meeting in about a month, and we will see if they vote in favour of it or not. We really should get a permit if our application is assessed against the planning scheme. However, it has become quite political, so that will cloud the councillors' thinking, I'm sure. So keep your fingers crossed we get a good result. Okay, on to today's show. I speak with Campbell Cooney, a Director of Hodges in Brighton, about selling property. Campbell has been in the real estate industry since the 80s, so has lots of experience. We have a good chat about how you go about marketing projects off the plan, how to give the market what it wants, and what materials and information you need to have ready when you start selling your project. I started off by asking Campbell what food he would eat until he was sick, and his answer surprised me.
Squid ink risotto.
Really?
Yeah. It's my favourite dish in the world. It's from Venice, or it's from northern Italy, but squid ink risotto. In fact, some of my questions on password questions in the internet, when you have to put in what's your favourite food, and it's mine, squid ink.
Oh, that's good. Now we need to get into your bank account.
So I didn't even think about that. Squid ink risotto is that or gorgonzola.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that can cause problems.
Yeah.
Gorgonzola.
If you eat too much. I bought some rocket yesterday, as a matter of fact, to put in to have it with a rocket pear, and walnut salad to have for the steak last night that I didn't get because it got too late when I ordered it in pizza.
Oh, nice.
But it's still in the fridge.
And is that the gorgonzola to go on the squid ink risotto?
No.
Combine the two
The best things
together?
can't quite go together. But if you see a menu at a restaurant, I see gorgonzola in there, it leaps into a podium finish of where I'm going to choose from.
Right.
Early. But squid ink, I did go to Venice because that's the home of it, and I only went to restaurants for a whole week that had it, and I had a different one at each restaurant, and it is different the way they cook it, and a different one, and that was it. I had squid ink down for the end of the week.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Campbell, we're here today to talk about selling
Mm-hmm.
properties and off-the-plan selling and project selling. Can you give us a bit of a background about how you got into property and the kind of sales that you do?
Okay, well, I've been in property since 1983, 8th of August. I can't remember my anniversary, but I can remember that one. The 8th of August 83, I was a footballer back then. That was more important, so I didn't. And my younger brother had gone straight from school into real estate, And I'd finished a marketing degree and didn't know what to do, because at marketing at that time it was advertising, and they were chaps with short chaps with bow ties, who I can't say, not banker, but the W word, and so I thought, no, I want to do that, and then so real estate would do, and then found out very quickly that it suited, which is more likely than good design. It just suited.
Why is that?
My father was a salesperson, so both my brother and I've got a sister, but my brother and I are natural sales people, as it turns out, and I have a fondness or propensity for numbers, and that's been handy. Which is that right brain? It's right brain, isn't it? So I think left brain's artistic. Yeah. I've got 99% right brain, I think. Don't let me draw a picture for you.
I was going to say, your numbers seem to be working out there.
Yes. No, it's all right brain stuff. So numbers, I'm good. I can remember phone numbers, I can remember numbers. I'm not that good at names.
And are numbers important in property?
Can be, yes.
Well, obviously there's one very important number.
Yes, what's
the sale price.
What they want and what you're actually going to get. Yeah. Yes, so numbers, it just helps a great deal. I find that it's an advantage. Someone comes into a property and say, well, what's the rate per square metre? Or I used to do commercial property and do rental. And they say, what's the going rent around here? So I just divide up the rent I wanted by the size of the building in my head and tell them that's the rate. Set them to the number and agree. I taught my kids, when we go to the supermarket when they were little, if we were buying Coke, is the 6, 12 or 14, they do odd numbers, 14 or 20 or 30 stack of, say, Coke cans better, because some are on special, so you have to divide the number of cans into the price to get down to per can, and you often found out that the 12 or the 10 was cheaper than the 30 bulk. It was a con, and you got in there, so you got down to per thing. So just doing that in your head, it's good fun. But it helps just knowing the numbers, being on top of rates per square metre for developments, rates per square foot, and how that relates to part of what you need to sell.
And then there's been a lot of development around this area for the last couple of years, a lot of project sales. Tell us a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, well, development's changed over the last few decades, from in the 80s, some renovations and maybe some small, some townhouse things. Dual locks were popular, put the, as of right, 100 square metres, 10.76 squares in the backyard, dump those in. You could do those, lots of those corners, and you see some of those older ones that are now being demolished because it's more heavily developed. But as the rules change and density and the demand and the relaxation of the rules for development, it's changed. And it's gone from townhouse developments now to predominantly apartment developments. Some townhouses in areas, but in the blocks of land are worth, land to develop, land is worth what you can get on it. So if I can get four units on it, it's worth more than if I could get 3 or 2 as a general rule. If I can get 4 levels on it or 5, it's worth better than more than 3, because you can divide up the amount of land so you can pay more. So that's changed. So the zonings and the ability to have higher density in areas in the zones around shopping centres and transport hubs and railway stations has made a change. It's changed what we're making people retire to. Used to retire to a smaller house called a townhouse. Now they're becoming less available, so we're going to force you to live in an apartment, maybe in the same suburb where you are, but it's apartment living in different styles.
And how has the marketing or the selling of those types of projects changed over the decades?
Well, there are different styles of developments and different sizes, and some companies have become specialists in that, and some accounting firms and placement firms have become specialists in placing them locally and overseas, and getting paid very lucratively. I don't think the buyers always realise that there aren't any free lunches, and if an agent's getting paid lots of money, it's in the price somewhere. A bit like the old guaranteed rent. It's in the price. It's in the price. And a stamp duty saving, which has just changed recently, but the stamp duty saving in the beginning of buy off the plan was an incentive, and people looked at that, but they need to look at that in concert with the price. Because it's the price right. If the price is high and you save stamp duty, you're still paying the same as you would at the other end. So it is the right property, and if there is a stamp duty saving, is the right product for me, and is the price appropriate for the property. But the style of it, so the common agent, which we are, the normal old-fashioned agent, has had to make some changes, and we tend to do what we call boutique. Boutique used to be under 10, then it was under 16, then it was under 20. Now boutique's under 40, I think, is the general rule of thumb that we can handle. So the boutique, the smaller ones, when they're doing towers and bigger stuff, and they need it to be, you need a specialist team that just focuses on that, and get, because it needs to be in and out.
And so when you're marketing these boutique properties, what are you thinking about in your campaign or your marketing, or how do you work with the developer to market and sell them?
If you've said the words work with a developer, if you have the opportunity to work with and not for, it's much better. Because if you're in concert, because you have the same aim. The aim is to sell them for an appropriate level. An appropriate level isn't necessarily milking the last dollar out of it, and certainly not giving them away. But there is an appropriate level that they've sold within a reasonable time frame, because there's a funding mechanism there for most of the developers. So it's within a reasonable time frame at a reasonable price, and then that money's done, and that's banked in inverted commas, and they can move on to another development having done the sales. Some of the very experienced developers ask you initially to price developments on the basis that I want them sold within 2 weeks. So what prices do you need to sell them within 2 weeks? Not the old style agency pitching for the business and telling the vendor that it might be worth more than one-off sales. But on these, how quickly can you sell them, and at what price do we need to have it at a reasonable level? The inexperienced developers hang out, and it costs them a lot more. It takes them months or sometimes years to sell, and it doesn't work.
When you say hang out, what do you mean?
They hang out for price. They put on a price. They look at what the rate per square metre, if it's an apartment, or what's the best price that is achieved, and that's what I want. And if it's the best price that's achieved, there may be a reason, might be a one-off, but they're just harder. So, that old adage that you leave something for the next person, you're not quite doing that, but you're saying if this is a fair price and I get a good lick out of it, a good profit at the end of it, my feasibility says that's a good profit. If it happens to be worth a little bit more at the other end, well, c'est la vie. But you've moved on with that profit, and hopefully you've got in training the next one to keep doing it again. Turnover is important. Positive turnover. I've sold, I bought, it cost. There's a margin, and I've got a margin out of it.
And you mentioned there, if you get the chance to work with, not for the developer, can you just expand on that a little bit?
Yes, there's trust issues with all sorts of business. So first of all, finding someone where you can trust their judgment and understand. So we will often, not often enough, but often get in on the ground floor. So someone will purchase some land and come and consult with you on the basis that we'd like to appoint you to be the agent for us from ground zero, rather than doing the development, going through town planning, working with the architects, then starting to build them, saying, no, or not even before building, we need to sell some, let's find an agent. We can assist with, because we're in marketplace, so we open houses and apartments and townhouses all the time, and buyers tell us what they like about it and what they don't. So what's important? So if you have a development, is it important to have ducted vacuum? Is that important? Is the laundry, should you have a separate laundry? You should have a European-style laundry. The level of appliance, does it make a difference? Should my floors be timber or tile? All those sorts of questions you can have. The design of them, what size? What size is optimum? And the sizes have just changed over the last year or so, because they first started, but quite a few years ago, it was they were slightly bigger. So they were versions of townhouses, but they were in apartments, too big. Then we went to the smaller ones because they were easier to sell, a lot more people could afford, and that worked. Now people are happy not just to have some of these developments as investments. They think of places to live in there, so they want occupiers, so you want a size that I can fit in. So a 2-bedroom that's 55 squares, which is really a shoebox, and you'll let one of your kids stay in there while they're at uni, but you won't live there yourself, and the courtyard fits half a Weber because the other half's taken up by the air conditioning unit and doesn't work. So it might look on paper. There's many a development that's come foul, and if they'd had to sell them at the end, they wouldn't have, because they look better on paper. People don't understand size often, and you see them, they've got 65 to 72 square metres, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Try and draw that in without a stand-up bed. So it's just not there. So they're getting slightly bigger. So we try and work with the developer and their architect and their designers and with the marketing and saying, let's give the public what they want, then they'll want to buy them from you, and if they want to buy them from you, they'll pay the appropriate money, and you won't have to compromise. So don't give them what you think they want, say what they actually want. And it's not that difficult to look at developments that have been successful, ones that have sold quite well, and then often some resales will go quite well. That one's worked. Is it a combination of position, style, finishes, price, all those sorts of things come into play. And when you're doing any form of development, you're building something to sell to others, so find out what they want. Is your target market investors? It's different to, is it owner-occupiers? Is it empty nesters? Is it the older generation? Is it the younger generation? Because that will tell you sizes of rooms, the style. Is it a conservative area, not a conservative area? Would I build something different in St Kilda than I would in Black Rock? Totally. People in Black Rock will say that looks interesting and not buy any. People in St Kilda will think that's as boring as hell, and I wouldn't go to Black Rock, but that style of thing in St Kilda won't fit either. So there is a demographic. That's a demographic to look at. So,
and how would you go about gathering that market intelligence?
Well, it'll be partly where it is. So if you go through the suburbs, and if I mention the suburbs to you and say Oakley or Essendon or South Yarra, you'll say, well, there's different types of people that live in those 3 areas. Different nationalities often. We go to Springvale, and you'll be the tall white guy. And you'll be on your own. So what are they? But what's important? You go to areas, and areas where we have Asians or Europeans, there are certain prerequisites. What do you call that when you're born with something? It's a natural, it's intrinsic in their body that they'll have, like the old Greeks years ago, only by brick. If you had a weatherboard, beautiful weatherboard, no, wood. I ask you, is it wood? Oh, yes, it is a classic California bungalow weatherboard home. Not for you, I guess. But say, it must be brick. And that's inbuilt. Brick, and they'll concrete the grass out the back. It's just where they are. So people are easy to sell to if their predispositions are satisfied. Same with investor markets and Asian markets. Just understanding, now that's a bit of experience, but understanding what they ask for.
And is that talking to local agents?
It's talking to people who do this stuff. So you're looking for many. We spoke off record before about how you choose an agent, but it's an agent suitable. And we're not suitable for every property, and that's not your benchmark. So you find, as a business, we try and find a fat band of selling. It's at the middle level, because if you sell all cheap stuff, and there isn't enough of it, if you only do the top end, well, in 2009 you were twiddling your thumbs because the top end wasn't moving. So where is that band? And it's the middle band that's good for turnover, but then it's understanding what those people want. And I tell you, this is what they ask for. Do we put in theatres in the bottom of houses or apartments now? Or is a cellar better? Well, theatres were, but no one uses them. Saunas in the 80s and 90s. 80s more. And 90s, they're full of storage boxes. But they hardly get used unless that's a person. So you wouldn't put a sauna or a steamer in a house unless it was ordered. But now cellars and basements are the go. Used to be house, tennis court and pool. Now it's multi-levels with multi-parking underneath in a cellar. And maybe it's a room if you've got extra space or work stuff in storage. But using less land because land's become expensive. So when you say work with, there's one we're working with now in Brighton. They've got some conceptual drawings. They're going to do about 10 apartments. They're going to be quite boutique, quite upmarket. So the demographic we're going for, so they'll be at the upper end of price, which is fine because there's only 9 or 10 of them in there. But they will have to deliver the value for the dollar. So if I'm spending $2 million or $3 million on a property, the finishes and what I'm getting must be commensurate with that price. It can't be what I can buy for $1.2 million, same tiles or same stone. Doesn't work. And then it's creating that point of difference that this is a little bit exclusive, and maybe I love that fear of loss, but maybe you can't have one. Tell someone they can't have something and they want it more. So you're creating, and then you're moving into marketing, and the marketing is again geared about the demographic. If I'm selling to the more mature, well, it's a different style of selling, a different pace. And when you're talking to them, it's a different voice, but it's a different pace of selling than if you've got 40 1 and 2 bedders.
So when you're talking about pace, talk to me a little bit more about that. The length of time that you're talking to them.
The gestation period for a deal.
Yeah.
Older people are the worst because mostly empty nesters, they start as a process. That they start. I think it might be time to move out of the family home. I think it's usually later than they should be doing it anyway. Because they hang in there, the house is too big, they've been rattling around, and we needed those bedrooms for the grandkids, and the grandkids don't come because they're not interested either, and they get dumped once in a while, and we find you don't need such a property. But then they start to look, but they don't have to move. So they look, and it sometimes takes a year for them to get around to say, okay, now I'll make a move. So the questions you ask are, how long have you been looking? Have you tried to buy anything? Have you seen anything you like? And that will tell you whether you follow them up again for a while in a serious manner or not. But they take longer to look, as against the same couple or people who are buying a little investment. So they've got some equity in their house and it's time to buy some property and we want that. And certain areas are Melbourne-wide and other areas are localised. So, for example, once you get out of the city, and let's head south because it's the area I know, out of the city, if you go Elk Park, South Melbourne, Middle Park, St Kilda, Elwood, well, the owners are everywhere. Some local, but they come from anywhere. Lots of people have an apartment in Elwood and they don't live in Elwood. Whereas we sold some developments around here. I think there was 22 in Durham Street. 95% of the inquiry was from people who were Bayside related. So that tells you what I need to do. International advertising. I don't advertise in Sydney or all that sort of thing. The internet will cover a bit, but most of the inquiry was people who are either in Bayside and they like to drive past it. It's that familiarity. So the boutique stuff's easier. That's more a local agent. The bigger towers at the BPM one, there's one on the corner of, say, City Road and Clarendon Street. Well, they'll come from overseas everywhere. And therefore, they'll also be warned when you buy into one. Who else is buying in? If they're owned by half the building, half of Asia or half of India's bought that building, well, that's going to reflect in the building, and you have to decide whether that's your thing or not.
So when you sit down and start mapping out a campaign or an off-the-plan selling campaign, what are the things that you're thinking about, and what are the tactical elements of that you would always look to roll out?
Tend to think in reverse. So you think about who we're targeting, and hope that your pre-work is right. So we're designing these things for certain people. Pre-work, and then say, well, what do those buyers need or want? What information is important? And then you also come down to personality styles. Some people want some sales evidence and some numbers evidence and some sizes and rates per square metre and this and this and this and how big's the balcony, how big are the bedrooms, those sorts of things. That's important. Numbers people often important. And they'll ask you. Their first questions will be sizes and bedroom sizes and this size and ceiling heights. So you need that information in your bag of tricks just to satisfy those. But their partner may be the left brain side and may be visual. So telling them numbers is just, we might as well be speaking Latin. So you need to draw the picture, and if you can't draw the picture mentally, you need to show them pictures. So good renders, if you have there, so they can see. And on bigger developments, you'll have displays. On boutique ones, you'll have lots of pictures, and the more itemised it is, the better they can see it. And or sample boards. Here's a sample with generally with limited choice. If you give them too much choice, they can't make a decision. And from a builder or developer's point of view, they don't want too many changes. You can choose. We have the carpet. Which colour would you like? Here's the timber. You can have a lighter shade or a darker shade. It can be limed or not limed, so to speak, or a paint colour. Once you've purchased, if you want a hot pink bathroom, you can have one. Paint, but they don't change everything. So that's just too hard. But you don't want to give them too much choice on numbers of units. So if you've got a group of units that are varying price ranges, establish your prospective purchasers' numbers, what their budget they have, and give them a choice of a couple, not 10. So they don't go away with all the plans. So you have take-home packs that they can look at, but they're take-home packs that you've created for that person when you've met them. In this game, I learnt early on, I used to have all the information, and then you'd buy and inquire, and I'd send them all the information. And I was wondering why it didn't work, because surely I was being efficient. Surely I was giving more than other people were, which I was. But you're giving it all, and then, well, I wasn't selling, they weren't coming in. So now you learn that you give them a teaser. Yes, we have something here, it's really good. No, I can't send you the list of finishes and all the plans. I need to meet you in the boardroom or in the meeting room we're sitting now. So I set up the time saying, here's the teaser, here's a couple of nice pictures of what it's going to look like, and maybe an indication of price, just a little bit of information, and say, this is good. What time next week would you like to come in? It's one-on-one. Then you can read the personalities, give them the information, and establish very quickly, are they a buyer or are they a looker? They always come in as buyers. Yeah, I'm looking to buy, I'm a buyer. Well, they're not. They might be a researcher on their path to becoming a buyer, but they're not a buyer yet. So establish that agents aren't paid by the hour. So you don't want to sit down with people who aren't going to make decisions for a year, so you have to work out who is worth following up. And in these times where there's quite reasonable demand, there's too many people to deal with. So deal with the ones that are going to give you the reward, and the reward is the reward to your developer as well.
And so what kind of questions would you use to screen those buyers to determine that they're serious?
What they've been looking for, what they're after. It's really finding what their situation is. What's the purpose of doing it? Are they buying it for them? Are they buying it for the kids? Is it in a super fund? Have they done it before? What sort of budget? Are they financed? Are they what their visa is nowadays? Because a lot of them are foreigners. What sort of visa have they got? And we have to know the Foreign Investment Review Board rules, and what happens if you've got a 188 visa versus you've got a temporary visa versus you're heading towards PR, permanent residency. So know whether they can buy or not, and what you need to do. That will sort it out. And but then really what they're after will tell you, and how long they've been looking at. Are they ready? And you have to sort through them pretty quickly, because it's if they're not the older people, which might take a bit longer, and they'll want to think about it and maybe see it's looking at it and provide the relevant information.
And with those take-home packs, what kind of content would you include in those?
Well, you have your whole suite of information, and then you put in the pack what's relevant to them. Because if they don't care who the builder is, there's no need to go into it. But lots of them, if they're a bit nervous Nellies, they might say, who's the developer, who's the builder, do they have a reputation? And developers will often come and say, do I need a name? Do I have to use Hubei as a designer? Do I have to have the landscaper? Do I have to have Robert Mills, the architect? Who do I use? What sort of these? And some of them get celebrities, like one of the local ones had the Italian chef as the celebrity. He'd helped design the kitchen. I think they had a cup of coffee and he asked him some opinions about it, say, can I use your name for a few grand? Yeah, sure. And his name gets used because he helped design the kitchen, which in reality he just didn't say it was awful. But they're marketing things. But take-home stuff, you will have information about the builder, you'll have information about the architect, because this can be important. So you have a list to prove that this is a serious development and take away any question marks over the integrity of the development. You have a list of all the professionals that are involved. The building surveying company, the engineering company, the mechanical engineering company for the air conditioning. Just have all their names down there and list them, and with a nice little logo next to them. That's one of the pages that they can have. One I'm doing currently, I have the builder. I did it myself. It's only a development of 4. They're keeping some, so I'm selling 2. So I don't have the benefit of samples and all that. But I got the architect and made up a brochure on the architect with a website they can go to, and they can select, and they look at what they've done before, just proving their credibility and credentials. Same with the builder. I look, if they got a decent website, yes, good. It makes it easier. And they're the professionals. They're really good. Have a look at the website. Puts that one to bed. So that's important. And then it's take-home packs will have floor plans, have individual floor plans of the units or townhouses, and you'll select which ones might suit them. Are they a front one, a back one, and a ground floor, or a first floor, upper level, lower level, budget, car parking, etc. So by talking to them, you'll send them home with, here's a couple of plans on these that have interested you. Same with the pricing, give them pricing of those. They don't need to know all the prices. You don't make anything up. You don't say something's sold when it's not, because as soon as that's not true, then you've lost all credibility anyway. But you'll have a schedule of finishes. These are the finishes. These are the appliances. I have a little checklist for inexperienced developers to say this is the information you need. If it's in a group, body corporate, estimated body corporate, and keep it basic. There's no sinking funds. There's no extras. Because body corporates owners corporations have a negative connotation. How much is it going to cost me? Hardly anything at this stage, until you all agree. But here's set. Again, it's a setup. This is proposals. And you need to know all the bits and pieces. If they're not local, the transport hubs and what's around schools and bits and pieces in case. And you have all that information that if it's relevant, that sort of stuff can go in there. And we all have finance arms or finance links if they need some finance, but off the plan, we're just looking for a deposit. Nowadays, we need 10% because the banks don't recognise them if they've been under, or a bank guarantee. And you can worry about finance later, worry about timing later. Estimate time of finish, time of construction, and any small changes they can make, but you don't offer those, they will suggest it. Certain styles, you have fixed prices. If the prices are right, they're fixed. Can I negotiate? Yes, you can negotiate which unit you want, not the price. I did that once because I thought I was 100% the prices were right. They said, we negotiate. I said, you can negotiate. You can have that one or that one. Between them, that's your. But no, the prices. They're the prices, and because the prices were fine, and we sold them. Others. If it's an experienced developer and they're asking too much, I'm one of those right at the moment. I think we're $200,000 too much. So if I get some resistance, I show some flexibility. But the owner knows he wants to try for that. But I'd look at an offer. It's not the best way to go. But I'll have a price. Some nationalities prefer a fixed price because you ask them to negotiate, they become uncomfortable. Why is it negotiate? Why is it too dear? Others expect to negotiate. You can pick nationalities and they'll tell you which ones are happy with that. So the information you have everything that might be asked about. You have to know the development, know when it is. Experience, what have they done before? 3 out of 10 will ask. Who's Fred Smith Developments? What have they done before? There might be some builders are doing their first ones or second ones in the last one. And people are even silly enough they'll go and have a look at something a builder's built for someone else. And they say it's not very attractive. I said, well, that's what they were told to build. It's not their fault. Not their fault. If you build someone wants a pink house and you build it, doesn't mean that you chose it. But they just want to see that it's not a fly-by-night thing that you see on TV shows and so forth, that people don't finish jobs or I'm locked in. And it's amazing how many people don't check the contracts well enough. What's the sunset clause? How long am I locked in for? I'm here for 5 years because those limits are gone now. So they don't necessarily check that, but make sure your contract is appropriate, because if they do check it and there's something out of order, then you'll lose the deal, and you don't want to lose the deal.
You talked about the reputation of the developer and also the builder. How important is that to you when you're dealing with someone, or if you've got someone, say, who's inexperienced, who comes in and talks to you?
Well, yes, as far as an experienced developer, well, then we have to set up the scene. That's when you get the backup of some of their professional services. So who are they using? So here's the developer and builder. Here's their architect. But when you read these and it's all a draftsperson and the wife's chosen everything else, and you start to get worried about it. Or a Chinese one recently. Well, he's had a Chinese builder from China who's out for the first time, and I thought this is all going south, and he wanted the cheapest possible products he could get. You'd be careful of your own reputation in these too. But if someone's just a little bit inexperienced, well then, if you what's that saying? Have good people around you. So make sure that's part of the agent's job, is to lend your experience and your reputation, or your firm's reputation, behind it and say it's a good product. We've been around for so long that I remember many years people assume things will be okay because you've got a good reputation. You know, in Bayside and Brighton, you've got a good reputation, so we know you wouldn't do the wrong thing. You know, it was good. I don't have that same level of trust. Personally, I'd check it just to confirm. But people will go and sign a contract for a development, or you'll buy a house and you won't have looked. You assume it's okay, and most of the time it is.
Yeah.
But the conditions in the contract are prepared by whose solicitor? The vendors. So who might they be protecting? Just make sure that they're not over-protected to your disadvantage. But generally speaking, most of that's pretty standard now. Then you'll have plans of subdivision, sizes of this, and all that sort of thing. So you've got everything. So you ask me 10 questions, I have the 10 answers. You ask me 3, and I give you the 3. Because if you're happy, you're happy.
And tell me, what are some of the things that developers do that frustrate you as an agent?
Tell you things that they know they can't deliver, like it'll be finished by Christmas. And you represent a bit of that, and they think, well, that's a quick build. And finished by Christmas, and it becomes June, they haven't started. And you think, this is not going to happen. So, telling them the truth, changing, getting towards the end of the building phase, towards the end, and they've worked out it's cost them more than they thought. So they start to cut back. And that's a big mistake, but they cut back things you can see and shrink things and change this, and that becomes very frustrating. Just not being honest is not great. Or becoming impatient that you're not selling them quickly enough. And the other agent has told me that he's got lots of buyers, and he's surprised at how conservative the pricing is. I've probably been surprised myself sometimes, or said the same thing when it's the opposition, but it's just understanding that if you can have a relationship for the period, and what is a relationship, and you're going together and you're going to be honest. It's nice to be able to be, we worry about getting appointed. So if you are appointed early, then you can be open and frank with your advice. It's not tempered by, I don't want to get the boot. I don't want to make the developer, builder, whoever it is, unhappy with me, because then he'll choose someone else. So just set about what your fees are. The fees are, everything's reasonable. And the fees generally are better for sales of plans than they are for the normal house. But that's how they should be. There's a bit of work. And when you get paid, all that sort of stuff. But you set the relationship in place that you can be frank to each other, and he knows that, because you mightn't have a buyer today, but this afternoon someone rings. You do an auction campaign, you don't have a buyer, and someone sends up in the day. You say, what a great agent I am. Great or lucky. As long as you follow them through and you keep records of the people, and good agents will have records of the people who inquired last time, and on their other developments, so you can get a head start with your databases there. That's only short term, and then you're looking at inquiry. That's what you do with inquiry, and the response times, and your email response times, and your telephone return response times. That sort of thing is quite important.
You've got to move quickly when you're selling off the plan. Yeah,
and it's a bit of a sense of urgency too, rather than the selling fast and huge success. I always wonder about when there's only 2 left, quick. I think only 2 left. They wouldn't be the better ones, would they? You would. Maybe I'm thinking half full rather than half empty. Whichever way the negative one is, or half full. But so a bit of urgency in there. Come in. If you can get someone to come into the office, then piggyback it with the next inspection of someone come into the office. If someone's ready, it's like if you're selling a property, it's better if they come through the open for inspection. They see the other people that might be interested, because then you can create fear of loss. You might miss out. Be quick here, secure it before he does. That sort of thing, and it's time to act. So you keep on them until you establish whether it's going to. Generally, a longer a negotiation, the longer people consider a place, the less likely they are to buy. So they look, a bit like trading. They look, they peak, and then they start to go down the other side of the mountain.
And earlier, before we started recording, we were talking about the stages of selling, and you mentioned tends to be easier to sell off the plan before construction started and then towards the end. But through the middle, it's harder.
Yeah,
Why is that?
During the construction phase. Beforehand, it's normal. You're selling it, this is what you're doing, and you're booking it a year in advance, and you're saving stamp duty and all those sorts of things. And that's good, and it's just on pictures. When it starts to take shape, people get a different picture, and they look, I'll wait to see how it goes. There's not that urgency anymore if you're still trying to sell them, and they'll want to be like Judas Iscariot. They want to see, feel, touch it before I believe. So that's when it gets towards the end. But in the middle, when it's a building site, and you can't see much, and it's just there's no urgency to buy. So it just seems to be the hardest time to get commitment is always during the construction stage, which is so when they've just started it's okay, but as it starts to come out of the ground it seems to slow down, and then towards the end they can see what it is, start to get an idea of what it looks like. It does somewhat resemble your renders in the beginning, and they don't, and lots of people can't imagine, although no, that's not true. They all imagine, but what's in their imagination bears no resemblance to what it's going to look like in the end. So they have a mental picture of this, it's going to look like that, and then I went away for a year and came back, so it's completely different to what I expected. And it is. If I run a company and the receptionist sounds really nice, she's tall and blonde, I'm thin brunette, and you get there and she's not. It's different. It's just that where you have a perception of what something might be, and then you meet the guy and say, you're taller than I thought you'd be, over the phone. How did that work? You've got more hair, you've got less hair or something. So the same here, people have an idea, and that's part of when you're selling, what's their picture, what sort of picture do they have in their mind, and not. Yes, you're trying to get on communion to the same wavelength as to what they're after, and you're massaging, often in apartments, like it's malleable. It's like plasticine, I'm massaging into the shape you like, and try and pick up on their points and say, do they match? Do you have a glove that fits the hand to some extent?
And so how would you go about choosing a selling agent as a developer?
It's partly, there'll be some agencies that do business around there, but generally an agency doesn't sell it. It's the people. So who's taking responsibility for your development? Because you don't get to negotiate with the buyers, you don't get to source them and negotiate. So what's their track record, level of effort, and that sort of thing. So they're better the reputation, but meet with them and talk. Would you buy something off them? It's a bit of a start, but some of the developers, especially builders, are old gnarly type blokes. So what they do isn't always what the public will do. It's a bit like what I put in my house, and how I'd renovate isn't what the general people would do. So you're appointing some people to represent your interests. So have an agreement. When you have an agreement of what's going to happen, understand it. Don't just sign a bit of paper and hope. But what information do they need? How they're going to do it? And then they will, as you process, I'd be saying, okay, we'll organise the information. If it's a bigger development, they'll have their own marketing advertising agency that will help. We quite like that because they can pay direct. Or the smaller ones, they'll need our help, or they'll have to use our agency and do it, and let's work through it. So it's all very logical. Are they responding, but are they going to give the buyers what they need, and then the follow up, and then some communication. And probably, as it goes against my grain as an agent, but probably have a period of time that they have, which you would happily renew if things are going swimmingly.
And what would that period of time be?
Probably initially, it depends on the size of the development and my pricing, but certainly be no longer than a couple of months.
Yeah. Initially.
So we'll go with that, and if you're happy and they're doing the work, well, it's easy to continue if things are happening, or there's reasons why they're not.
Yeah, well, if they're not, what approach do you take as an agent then going back to the developer?
Well, things aren't happening. Well, our job is to create it. So if I'm not getting inquiry and I wait and expect that to change without making any changes, well, do the same thing and expect a different result. That doesn't work at all. So you have to change your internet. You have to look at your pricing if that's the feedback. But often it's not pricing because the inquiry prices are published. So if they're not calling you, there's something else wrong. The style of your marketing that you're doing, where you're doing it. Do I need some local letterbox drops? Do I need some other advertising, some other media or mediums to do so? Have we followed up? Have we rejuvenated the sales force? Is there sufficient incentive? Give them some incentive. So.
Which might be what would be an example of an incentive?
Well, there's different types of incentive, and it's interesting to see what works. And it's not just pay a lot more money. I had a fellow in our Sandringham office who was rather than, if you gave him a bonus commission, if you got a price, you get an extra $500 or $1,000. That's nice, but it wasn't the motivator itself. But I said to one owner, he said, I said, no, just give him top shelf scotch, one bottle of something that he wouldn't, maybe he's a scotch drinker, and he wouldn't spend $150 on a bottle of scotch. So I said, you promise him one of those if he gets you that result, if he does a good job, and that's all he could see was this bottle of scotch he was going to get, and he got it and he was wrapped. So what motivates the consultant? You just want them to be thinking of your property. Because a good agent will have others, and they respond to whatever inquiry is there, and they'll do stuff. But you're in contact with them too. It's a bit of a squeaky wheel. How are we going? I've got one now. He sends me technically every day, and I've got to not be tempted to be sucked into giving him news that isn't there. I'm hoping this person will come back, and it is just a forlorn hope. So just tell them the truth. Nothing today, but I want them thinking of it. That's all you want. I'm thinking of your development. Someone rang me today, and I'm already on to them, and we're back. Then you'll know that your agent's working for you. And
so that's a good point, because quite often agents will have a number of projects. Yeah. So how do are there any other ways you can keep it front and centre or keep them focused on that, on your project?
Well, that's just the communication with them and making sure that the agent doesn't have any excuses in that you haven't given him something that is needed, and it's not just more advertising. It's not just more advertising, because there is a limit to that cost. But do they have the tools of their trade? Do they have what they need to give the people? And is it good material that will not cut back, not cheap renders from China that don't look very good, or that sort of stuff? But it's really just being in touch with them. There are some, I mentioned agency. There's an agency that does a lot of the bigger developments. But their big go is to come in and slash the price, sell a few of them, and then move on. So they've sold some easier ones, and then when it gets hard, because if you've got 50 in there, there'll be a few you'll get a wave up first, and then it's a bit of a slog. And then you go to another agency, and they've got the slog, and it's harder. So they just take the cream. So be careful that whoever your point is in it for slightly longer haul. And listen to the feedback and talk about the pricing, the finishes, bits and pieces in there to make sure that you change what you're capable of changing.
And are you seeing any emerging trends coming in with marketing and selling off the plan?
The market's been quite strong. The real estate market post GFC and post 2010 went down a bit, but in recent times it's been quite strong. The selling off the plan has become harder in the last 6 months. Some of the companies that were doing it themselves are now coming to agencies for help because they were doing their own developments because they didn't need us, and now they do again, and it has become a bit harder. Part of that is the perception that you read in the papers, there's too many. I mean, you look up how many approvals there are, how many apartments there are, and who's going to buy them. And I still get surprised that people are still buying some of the ones that I wouldn't have bought. And then you read about financing in Dockland and South Yarra around the city, that they're not giving any more finance, or they'll value them at 70 or 80% of the value and then give you 60% of that. So it's harder to finance, and there's a little bit of that happening, and people can't settle. So it's become a bit tougher to sell them. So as a developer, you need to understand the time of that, but that's part of your feasibility. Because if you're selling them within a month, it's good. If it's going to take 6 months, your holding costs will be different. So make sure that's all factored in and you understand what that is, or ease the price a bit.
That's the agent's favourite trick, isn't it?
Well, at the end of the day, if no one's buying them and you've taken away everything else, if you say a house for sale, it's been for sale for a while in a good market, it's usually at the end. And I probably went through 4 agents. I said, when's he only going to realise it's not the agent's fault? Because he hasn't changed his price. And people are looking at it, and trust me, the agent doesn't get paid anything for not selling. So you do try. When you try and sell it, it's that communication. So find the agent that's going to be honest and frank with you and understands development, and he's got to be honest and frank and really try. As an agent per se is you. They're representing you. They're you in the marketplace. So get someone that predominantly does what they do if it was theirs. Providing you've already established they make good decisions and they don't hang out for prices that can't be got. But they're in there, they're going to try, and they read a buyer and they say, I've got one here and we can do the business.
And so if you've got one top tip for developers out there, what would it be?
Do some research, but take the advice. Look at the advice of people who are involved in this on what you develop. If you're developing them to sell, it's not your favourite colour, not the style of property that you want. It's what the market will accept or will desire. So you mightn't be a contemporary guy. You might live in a period house, or you might want some particular things. I wouldn't live there. You're not living there. So give the market what it wants. That's a bit of research. A decade ago, a chap was doing some townhouses in Hampton, and he had a style. I said, they were too different. But this is a concept he had in his head, and I misread it in our first meeting. I said, that's not the look. He built them anyway, and gathered another agent, and came back to me later and said, you're all right. Because he couldn't sell them, they compromised on price, because he built what he gave the public what he wanted to give them. So really, it's the design, it's the beginning. And if you're a developer, your profit or the success of your development is the day you buy the land. Subject to a couple of other things like the market and timing, but you buy it at an average spot and it's average. So you pay too much for the land, you can't just add that onto the price at the other end. So feasibilities are quite important, and there's a margin there, and then you do it and price them appropriately so you're in there for reasonable times on all stages. Don't get bogged down in the first stage of trying to sell them for too much. The first week or 2 or 3 of a selling campaign are quite important. After then, people have dismissed them, even if you've dropped the prices. They've looked at them, no, and it's not. They won't even often decide that they don't like it because it's dear. That's the real reason. But they might go, no, it's not worth it. And then you get your label, it's not worth that, even we dropped the price, but it's not worth it, the finishes weren't up to speed. So there's like the finishes weren't right, but the finishes may have been right for the current price, but they weren't right for the first price, whatever that reason is. So just get things right in the first place, get them organised in the first place, don't go to the market half-baked, don't listen to bull dust. Work with someone, get someone that you think you can actually work with, and say, well, whilst we work together, we'll stick together.
Yeah, it's an important point because you are going to work with that person for a number of years, really.
Can be. And there's a lot of effort, and people say, I'll give you X percent, for selling, and we have a percentage commission rate, X percentage, but it's the same as if they turned up at the end, here, sell this, or in the beginning. It is very different. Should be very different. There's a lot of work to have meetings with architects in the beginning saying we're going to planning. Planning is going to be 6 to 12 months. And you think, well, I'm not paid by the hour. You go see your lawyer. He doesn't say, oh, I'll do the first half a year for free, hoping he'll select me to represent you in court. So there is a balance there. So it's a bit of loyalty and trust from both ways. Then you've got a good relationship. Unfortunately, that can't always be the case. And there's not a lot of experience out there on doing these. And it is a different method of selling. It's easy to sell a house that's there, you can walk through there, the bedrooms, I know what happens in bedrooms, but we've got to sleep here, etc. I know what happens in the kitchen, and I can see it and feel it and touch it, and I look around and it's there. We're selling an idea and a concept, and it's up on the third level at the rear, which way is the sun facing, if they're interested in the sun, all that sort of thing. So you're selling an idea, it's different selling. And the normal salesperson can't do it. A normal residential person can't sell a shop. Why? It's a shop. No, it's commercial. It's not that's not my thing. It's just understanding what the people think. It's not that hard.
Talk me through a little bit more about this idea about selling the idea, the different kind of selling with off the plan.
Well, part of that is because you don't have. It's to have models built. They cost thousands of dollars, and most developers won't do this. So to look at, so you're selling the idea, or you're trying to mould that idea to what they're looking for. So this is a good investment. This is why, and the facilities around there, and the tenancy rates, and what's going to happen here, and the rental return, and people buy property for what? Growth and return, or return and growth. It's depending on where they are in the cycle. So it's good news stuff. So you'll have rental estimates and show them what has happened around here, what's expected. Back in the heady 80s, they had all these plans on what your rental growth would be, what your capital growth would be, what your returns would be. And they had tables that ended up bearing no resemblance of what actually occurred, but people bought into that for investment. People, why are they buying it? And then that form the picture in their head of how it's going to look. Even investors will buy something they like. It's as though, would I live here? Or would I let my kid live here, despite the fact it's going to be rented? And to the other side of town, and all they're really buying for it is, what are they buying for? So you're packaging up. You like blue paper with a red ribbon? Guess what? Go Demons. Here it is. So package it up and get that picture going in them, or it's a numbers one, satisfy them that this is the one. People will look at more than one development. If you're buying a property, you see what's available. If you're buying property off the plan in Bayside, or in a suburb, you look at what's available. So go on to the net and see what your competition is. As an agent, if I'm selling anything, so if I'm selling a property worth $1.5 million, I want to know what's from 1.3 to 1.7 available, because that's what your buyers will be. They'll have no idea what's $1 million or the $5 million, nor do they care. So what are you up against, and how do you compare? What are your points of difference? Oh, I'm looking at that other one around the corner in that street. So, I know those, and then point out what yours has that they may not have. They might have something you don't have, but you might not give that any sunlight, but something that you do have. Our rooms are slightly bigger. We've got 2 bathrooms. We have an ensuite. We've got an extra spot. We have a storage cage, and maybe the other one doesn't. And you might just show those differences. That we've had some other buyers looking at that one as well, and their comments have been they like the fact that we have storage cages. The other buyers have said that they like our orientation. The balconies are bigger here. So it's not your opinion, but you're biased, of course. It's the other buyer's opinion.
All right, Campbell, tell us what's one of the most difficult or the toughest business decision you've ever had to make?
As we touched on earlier, so they're different. Toughest ones harder. Difficult ones, look back in hindsight, they're difficult ones are the ones that have a high risk attached to them. Generally, when you're taking a punt, and I say to people now, that's your personal risk profile, and I had a higher risk profile when I was younger than I do now. And so when we bought the business, this business, we worked at Hodges, and then we bought it in 91, and had to sell everything. So we put it all on black. We're all in. My cards are good, and that was a risky decision. I didn't think it wasn't super difficult at the time, but it turned out to be much harder work. I thought it was a walk-up start, but it turned out to be much harder work. And most of the hard work, as any other business person with a company will tell you, is the people, is employee relations, is staffing, and that's changed over the years, and it's just got harder with the different generations. But the staffing, so that's probably looking back, that was a decision that was probably the bravest. Tough ones where it's you have a fork in the road. You have to decide what style of business you have. I had a mentor, or my first boss, whenever I gave him a decision, asked, and I do the same now. They say it was always which was the right one to go. We might better make a decision about selling a property, and one way we would benefit slightly more than the other way. And his answer, which was a good lesson to learn, was which is the right decision. And often that was not the one that might line your pocket with an extra $1,000, and you say take the right decision. So maintain your ethics in that, but there's some little decisions you have all the way, because everyone gets tested. Sell it to me and I'll look after you. Sell it to me and you'll get my house for sale. Compromise, what they're really asking, compromise a little bit for me, and don't open that cupboard and put a skeleton in there, because it'll haunt you later, so there's no point. Yeah. So, but tough decisions are partners, letting go of partner, letting go of staff. I find still letting people go the hardest who haven't made it easy for you. So they haven't done the wrong thing. They're nice people, they're just not going to make it. And so still, I don't think you can enjoy that.
No, I remember hearing someone use a turn of phrase called killing the Bambis to ensure your business grows. Which is that example there. They're nice people, they're good, they're nice, but they're just not right for your business and helping it to grow.
Yeah, but don't hide behind that's business. People do the wrong thing. I shaft you. Mate, that's business. It's not business. It's personal ethics. So you can sleep at night. So what's that old do unto others? Would you mind if that person did exactly the same to you? That's a good test. It's like the one you tell your kids, if you can't tell your mother about it, you shouldn't be doing it. But it's here. Well, if that happened to you, there's lots of people say, "Oh, do this." So, well, and then the first one's to scream if it was turned back on them. So just be careful. And it's not black and white. There's white, and then there's a band of grey in the middle, and then there's black. And as agents, you'll often work in the grey area, which means you might not tell someone something. Like, I'm not going to tell someone that there's a dodgy stump in the back corner of the house, so you don't go around pointing out all the faults of the house that you're trying to sell. But there is, you hide behind a bit of cave and empty there. People do their research. I can say this, but you don't misrepresent. Things are what they are, but you'll get caught out later. So represent the positive things, but so they're tough decisions for a while until it becomes the right habit. And I over the years now look at people and whoever they are. If they're older, it could be my mother or father. If they're my age, it could be my brother or my best mate. If they're younger, it could be one of my kids. And say, what would I do for them? Or what would I do if it was mine? And it's an easy decision because you are looking for the best outcome, providing the ethics are good.
Well, you're basing that on the assumption that you like all those people you've just referred to.
No, yes, you do. So you remember your best mate you like, of course, and one you tend to like your mother even anyway, unless there's something about him, but you do. You look at it and say, what would I do? And there are a lot of people that have no idea about real estate or what to do. Why do people turn up on Saturday, put their hand in the air for $2 million, having never done it before, and not knowing what's going on around them, and another 10, another 20, 30, 40, I've got 50 now, and they're doing this and they've never done it. Yet if they were arguing with a neighbour about a $10,000 fence, there'd be lawyers at 10 paces for $10,000, but for $2 million you stand there and hope.
That's a discussion for another time.
Yes, it is.
All right, well, Campbell Cooney, thanks so much for being on the Property Developer podcast and sharing your insights and lessons with us. I'm very grateful to you.
Interesting questions. You're a good interviewer.
Well, thank you. I try and tease out some good information from people.
Hard hitting. That's good. You should be on one of those TV programs and get asked awkward questions, or get the answers instead of what they want to tell you.
That's right. I've got my TV crew outside the door ready to start following you back to your office.
Go pin Trump. That's a good one.
No, thank you for being on the show. It's been great talking with you, and I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right, there you go. What a great discussion around selling development properties. I always find it fascinating speaking with agents about how they go about selling property off the plan, as they usually have some good tips and insights into how to best get a sale. I forgot to ask Campbell how people can contact him, and he said email would be the best. So his address is ccooney@hodges.com.au. So that's ccooney@hodges.com.au. Here are a couple of lessons I took away from my discussion with Campbell. 1. Work with the agent. Campbell mentioned how it is better to work with the developer, not for the developer. And I think if you can develop a partnership approach with the selling agent, then you will get a better result. Involving them in design discussions or seeking their feedback on market wants is a great way to tailor your product to what the buyers want, not what you think they want or what you like. And this leads into lesson 2. Figure out who your buyers are. I am sure many developers assume they know who their buyers are and what they want, and possibly they do. I know I was quite surprised by the mixture of buyers when I met some of them at the inspections that we held. There were groups of buyers that I hadn't expected to buy into the project. Selling agents are at the front line of the market, speaking with people every day and hearing what they like or dislike. So tap into that market intelligence and give the buyers what they want, or find ways to incorporate differences in your offering to what other projects may have. Just make it an easy decision for a buyer to choose your development. 3. Have the answers for the most common questions. Campbell talked about being ready with the most common questions he will usually get from buyers. Things like ceiling heights, finishes, owners' corporations, fees, etc. So have that information ready for the agent when the project is going to hit the market. It can be easy to gather that stuff along the way rather than at the end when you are madly trying to launch the selling campaign. So check with your selling agent about what information they might like and how it can be presented to them, and also how it might be given to the buyers. If the agent can quickly answer these questions, it will help to overcome objections and build trust. Okay, we are just about at the end of another show. Remember, you can find all the past episodes of the show over at www.propertydeveloperpodcast.com, including other conversations I've had with selling agents. So if you are interested in selling, then try episode 24 with David Stewart, episode 9 with Tony Smith, and episode 6 with Sam Gaiman. And don't forget to catch all my latest developing photos and videos on Instagram at Property Developer Podcast. Thank you again for listening in. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, may all your projects sell fast and high.
You've been listening to the Property Developer Podcast. Tune in next time for more tips, ideas and inspiration to take your developing to the next level. For more developing love, make sure to visit propertydeveloperpodcast.com.